G'day, Bomber fans. We have got some player ratings from the Fremantle game, and this is going to be a fun one, by the way, because I feel like the vibe is so different across the board. The scores are going to be really odd, because as I say in every video, I rate these guys out of 10 based on my expectation of them. I'm not going to hold Vigo to the same standards as Zach Merrett, so we're going to see some weird ratings, okay? So bear with me, all right, on that. Try and understand where I'm coming from. Let's just get into it. Let's rip off the Band-Aid. Starting with probably the most divisive player on our list, realistically, Andy McGrath. He's had a poor few weeks. He's probably lucky that we didn't do the ratings last week. Although I thought against Geelong, and this is the thing with McGrath that I think we need to talk about, right? For the most part in games, he is a very solid player. Even last week against Geelong, I probably still would have given him a similar score to this. But against Geelong, he had Stengel in his pocket all game until late, and then he made some really crucial, costly errors. And I think that was the same here. And I get that, numbers around him are dropping, which gives him more responsibility with ball in hand, which is not his strength. Is exposing his biggest flaws a bit. But yeah, there were some shocking moments. He was put under pressure himself in those moments by inexperienced players around him not quite hitting the target. But I think he should be better and more composed in those situations than what he is, So he should be making those ill-executed passes to him look better, because there's often times where he's the one executing those passes just a little bit wrong. To be fair, as I said, most of the game he's solid. You can't knock him for the entire game. He was going at 95% efficiency. He was defending. He was intercepting. But there were a few really big moments on the night which do real damage to morale, I guess. When Clarke or Blakiston makes an error, it doesn't feel the same as when a genuine leader in McGrath does. And that's just the expectations you get with the role sometimes. Realistically, you can probably count on the one hand the negative acts he had on the game, but it's still, those acts are pretty big. I think, most of the time, I think people blow it out of proportion a bit. Everyone makes mistakes. But when you're in the back half and you're doing what McGrath was doing against Fremantle, having a tea party when he's got people tackling him, I thought, this was a pretty poor game from our leader. I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. I don't think it was horrible. Everyone's always going to knock McGrath anyway. And that's a good sign as to if he's playing well or not. Because I think for the last 2 or 3 months before this last fortnight, everyone's been quiet on McGrath because he's been playing really well. He's been amongst our best. But yeah, the last 2 weeks he's been pretty poor. I think he's one that's going to be happy when reinforcements arrive, because, when Ridley and Reid are using the ball, it means that McGrath has less responsibility to rebound and can just focus and hone in on his direct opponent, which, is his role in the team, and it's what makes him such a good defender. So I'm giving McGrath a 4 out of 10. I wasn't very happy with his game at all. Darcy Parish. Really tough one to judge Darcy Parish, because the midfield was pretty soundly beaten. How much of that do we put on the midfielders themselves? We have to remember that we had a horrible ruck situation. Nothing against Vigo, but a first game player was never going to be able to match it with Luke Jackson. And I said that in the review that Jackson had 10 clearances himself and 18 hitouts to advantage. So that is 28 times where he is not clearing congestion, but, giving Fremantle the advantage for a clearance, which is, you can't really contend with that. Like, you can say Shark Jackson's hitouts, but that is so much easier said than done. A lot of the time, our midfield was just on the back foot, so we have to cut him a little bit of slack there. But yeah, I did think, in defending transition, I don't remember Parish doing too much, and Sarong and Brayshaw were just everywhere. I thought Parish was better going forward than usual. Merrett of the midfielders had the most score involvements, but after him it was Parish with 6, and then Caldwell had 4, Setterfield had 1. So he was doing more damage than others around him. He was finding himself in good areas, but yeah, he wasn't really defending the other way. Tough one to rate, because there were aspects of his game I liked more than Caldwell and Setterfield. But I just feel inclined to give him a 5. Just, I don't know. Is that harsh? You guys tell me. I feel like he's been back for 3 weeks now. He should be, the cobwebs should be dusted off a bit. I get that the situation is horrible. There's so many times he just wouldn't have got first usage. I'm going to give him a 5. Yeah, I feel like we can probably expect more from a defensive point of view from our midfield, because the last few weeks it has looked a bit one-dimensional, I think. Which, part of that is the situation with all the injuries, but part of that is just because, maybe these guys are just not great two-way runners. And another one is Jye Caldwell, and I love Caldwell, but this guy does make mistakes just as much as Andy McGrath and Darcy Parish, and I don't think he gets the flack for those mistakes. I get that there's different positions with McGrath. McGrath's mistakes look worse in the back half, but these and part of the argument here, I'm not trying to compare them. I'm just saying that glaring mistakes don't always point to a bad game. I gave Caldwell a vote. I thought he was one of our best on ground. But I thought some of his ball use going forward was just wasteful. There was a really horrid out on the full where we should have had a mark inside 50, but he just miskicked, mistimed. I thought he was blazing away early while others were calm going forward. I felt like there was a difference in his inside 50s to the players around him, and that shows on the score involvements. He had so much of the ball, but didn't really do heaps of damage with it. He did also have some great moments by foot as well. So we got to give him credit there as well. There was a bit of a juxtaposition in his game. Yeah, I don't know. I think we probably got to hold this guy a bit more accountable to his mistakes like we do with McGrath, because I feel like because Caldwell's a fan favourite, everyone kind of just glazes him and doesn't notice the bad things as much. But, that midfield was really beaten up. And I thought he was probably the best of the midfielders. I thought he gave it a crack. 8 clearances, so much of the footy going forward. Worked really hard. I will give him a 6. I think that is his base game for me. I thought defensively he was a bit, not as well, none of the midfielders were great defensively, obviously. We got butchered there. I think he was the best of our midfielders, but it was a pretty bad engine room, so a 6 seems fair. Let me know what you guys think there, though, because it is hard to judge these players in this game. There are going to be some wacky ratings. Zach Merrett, for example, I don't know. I feel like this probably, I don't know. The weird thing with Merrett, right? He's been shaky by foot. I thought he was terrific by foot against Fremantle. I thought he was incredible going forward. Some of those kicks were lovely. I think he went at 100% potentially, or close to it. His second most score involvements from a low disposal game as well for the team, not the game, but under Caddy he had the most score involvements. So he, everything he was touching was turning to gold because it was a low disposal game. By that, you'd look at his game going forward with ball in hand, and it was pretty good. But I don't know. I just think when you are the captain of a club, I don't know. I look at that game and there was nothing about it that made me think about Merrett as a captain. And I'm not worried about him as a captain. We know he's a great leader, but in this game, I don't think he was. His body, his attitude looked wrong. It didn't look like he was trying to lead by example like usual. It looked like he was tired and didn't really want to be there. I thought there were inspirational moments in the game, but none of them were coming from Merrett. It was all coming from the kids. Roberts, chase down tackles. There were more. All I can think of is the Roberts one. There were more. Setterfield had another one. I thought Merrett wasn't really giving us enough leadership on field through his actions, and I think that is a pretty important part of his game right now while we're so young. We need Merrett to be at his best leadership-wise. So yes, he was very good by foot, but I'm going to judge him for his leadership because we need him to be up and about for the kids. I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. All right? I know that might be harsh. I think he needs to be lifting more than he does, or he is, because he has had a very bad month. This is a very odd run of form for Merrett. He started the year a Brownlow favourite, and now he is maybe not even in the All-Australian team. That's come out of nowhere a bit. He definitely needs the bye as well. He could be carrying something. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got an injury or something. And I guess in hindsight, if it turns out he is playing through injury, these performances will probably look better than what they are. But we can't, just assume that he has a niggle if it hasn't been made public. So I'm giving him a 4. Ben Hobbs. Much better in terms of effort. I thought he was having a crack. He was applying really good heat. He had the 5 tackles, equal most for the club, 20 pressure acts. He was getting dirty on ground level. You could tell he wanted the contest. He wasn't shying away from anything like others were. He was finding himself in the action more often than not, which is good. That's what you want. I think I'm going to give him a 6, but I'm not like pleased with his game. Like I think I want to be talking about Ben Hobbs more for other reasons. It is good because every 2 or 3 games he plays, he has a real, crack at it, a real effort-based game like this, where you think, you look at him and you think that there's a place for him in the future, with his grunt and just there is a bit of courage in his game, and that is valuable. But I don't think I've really praised Hobbs this year for anything other than that. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like whenever Hobbs is at his best is because he's getting in and under, he's playing dirty, gutsy footy. It's why he's such a, he'd be a very good player in a contest-heavy, wet game. But, if it's not wet, if it's dry and free-flowing, he's not really a solid part of the system. His open play game needs improvement. I'm still going to give him a 6 for this game because I thought he was decent, but I would like to be praising him for something other than his pressure and defensive intent because, it's not really a great way to build a career if that's all you've got going for you. And that's not what I'm saying he has. I think he needs to be showing other strengths. Yeah. Isaac Kako, similar role to Hobbs. So forward half pressure player. But I think Kako was doing more with the footy, and from less with it as well. So his game up forward, he had 12 touches, 1 goal, 1 behind, a really nice goal assist as well to Lual, 5 score involvements. So almost every second touch is a score involvement. That's really good. It's ideal for a player this young. But also, he led the entire ground with pressure acts, 27. Not all tackles. He was hunting down, he was corralling, he was getting involved at the floor of a contest. I thought a lot of the time he was shoved out and held well, and that's what happens when you're so young. But he looked the most threatening of our smalls. I thought Gresham and Guelfi were not really doing enough, and it was this kid who stood up and impacted to try and get us back in the game. So yeah, we're starting to see him really show that he's probably the main guy in that forward line on ground level, and he will be for the future. And yeah, he probably shouldn't be dropped like people have been saying. This is great experience for him. He's learning so much through these games. Not only when he's playing well like this, but also when he's playing poorly. So I'm giving him a 7 out of 10. I think it was probably his most rounded game of the year so far. I really liked the defensive intent, but also he showed that he could do a bit with the ball as well, which is kind of goes off what we were saying with Hobbs before. Anyway, Jade Gresham, Kako's partner in crime. Yeah, I don't know. It's just not really working, is it? It's not good. And there comes a stage where we do have to think about what the purpose of playing Gresham in our team is, okay? Because he was so busy against Carlton. I was ready for a bit of a purple patch. And I think if he is playing good, consistent footy, it is great to have him there because it takes pressure off Kako. But he's not playing good, consistent footy. At his best, he is good. We have seen that. He's played some really good footy for us. But he's quite rarely at his best for more than 2 games in a row, It's tough because he even in game he has moments like he kicked a nice goal, had some nice moments. You can't give him a 1 out of 10 because he does have nice moments in game. Like last week against Geelong, he kicked that lovely goal from the boundary. But yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be scraping the bottom of the barrel for positives for a senior player like this. And I wonder what happens next year when Hussein comes into the team on our list, because I don't think it's out of the ordinary to say that he could play AFL for us like Kako is now. And Gresham's just not giving us enough. I think on occasion he does. He's played some good footy, but it's almost always followed by a game like this where he just isn't really involved. I'm giving Gresham a 3 out of 10. A few nice touches here and there, but nothing close to positive. It is tough to know what happens with Gresham. I guess we keep him on the list, but do we? I don't know. I don't think he'll do this, Rosa. But I wouldn't mind, a bit of a statement made. First from the coaches, I think Gresham has to be in line to be dropped, not next week, the week after. And then at the end of the year, it sounds rough, but this is someone who is clearly tradable, I think. And you might not get much for him, but we didn't pay anything for him in the first place. We gave him a big salary. I know people are mad about that, but we had plenty of money left over. It's not like we were paying him money that others weren't getting. Our salary cap was huge. That is why we were allowed to pay Ben Mackay and Jade Gresham big bucks with front-loaded contracts, so they're earning less as time goes on. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happens with Gresham. I guess we'll find out. Moving on to a more positive vibe, Will Setterfield. And look, I don't even think he had that good a game, but I'm going to give him a decent score. Well, not decent, but a positive score, because realistically, like, not a great game. The Dockers got control of the midfield. He wasn't really, a functioning part of it. But gee, he was tough. And that's the inspirational kind of message that you're sending to the young kids, I think. When you get battered, you go down, come off the ground, everyone thinks you're going to get subbed, then you come back on, get battered again. And the third time, so it starts with the calf complaint, comes back on, goes down in a marking contest, comes back on, and then that third one where he goes down in the marking contest and comes up with white paint from the field all over his face, and he's looking like he's taking his last breath, and then he goes on and plays the rest of the game. It is inspirational watching that. Even if you're not having a good game, that is the attitude that I like when you've got kids around you, because they are going to watch that. They're going to see us fans admire that. They're going to see teammates admire that, and they're going to know that they shouldn't be afraid to put their body on the line for the club, like Setterfield does. And I think we saw that with a young player that I'll talk about later. You probably already know who I'm hinting at, but yeah, it's good to see that attitude. So I don't think he played a good game, and it's kind of the opposite with Merrett. Merrett did so much right with the footy. He was really involved going forward. I didn't like his attitude, whereas Setterfield didn't do a lot in the game itself, but his attitude, I think, gets him a 6. In a game like this, where it's all about the future, you need really good attitude from those senior players, and I thought Setterfield showed real leadership. Jayden Laverde next up. Probably his worst defensive performance of the year so far. And that might sound odd, because he had 6 kicked on him last week against Jeremy Cameron. But I think, that's Jeremy Cameron. That is one of the best forwards we've ever seen. Whereas this week, Josh Tracy, nothing against Josh Tracy, he's awesome. But I just thought he was timid early, which got Tracy involved. Then he was just a step or two behind for most of the game. I thought his defensive partners, Lachlan Blakiston, who's a ruckman, and Jaxon Prior, who's playing about 10 centimetres smaller than his opponent, I thought they were better in the air, or more commanding in the air than Laverde. And, he had 2 intercepts for the game, Laverde, 2 spoils. His opponent kicked 3 goals and had countless other involvements up the field. I'll give him the tiniest bit of slack, because he shouldn't be playing on Josh Tracy to begin with. But yeah, I thought this was a poor game from Laverde. And that's probably the first time he's really properly lowered his colours, I'd say. I'll give him a 5 out of 10. Speaking of lowering colours, oh boy. Yeah, Archie Perkins. I don't know. Ideally, we don't talk about Archie Perkins too much here, because it's not a good vibe. Like there are players like Jade Gresham where you can pin it down to poor list management, because we knew what he was like at St Kilda. But Archie Perkins, we have seen him at his best. A high draft pick. He's showed promise a lot in his career. Like, you can't discount the fact that he is a game-breaking player at his best. He's had 3 vote games in his short career. And even this year, right, he showed so much promise in the early rounds. And we were talking about him as that reliable goal-scoring forward, kind of replacing Jake Stringer. That's what he was doing early. He was playing his role, kicking goals, and now he's just lost his touch. He is a man completely void of confidence. There is nothing going right for him at the moment, and he knows it. I can't really give him anything higher than a 2. I just felt really not good watching him play. Like, it was pretty brutal. I'm not giving up on him. I think we keep him on the list. We see what we can get out of him in the next year or 2. But yeah, it's time is not running out, but it is, yeah, he's not young, and he's young, but he's not young enough to warrant, staying in the team consistently. And I think it's not long until he's dropped. And yeah, that's probably not going to do his confidence good, because you can clearly tell he's a confidence player. He's shown at his best. He is a very damaging footballer, like one of our most damaging footballers at his best. I don't think we have many players in our team that are, capable of a 3-vote game, a 3 Brownlow vote game, but Archie Perkins has got, 3 votes in a game once or twice before. So yeah, let's hope that we see some better footy from him to round out the year, because at the moment it's just not looking good. He gets a 2 out of 10. Peter Wright, mixed bag from Peter. I mean, I thought he was prominent early. He got that lovely goal on the angle. He was taking marks, getting up, helping in the ruck again. He was on track for another solid game, but I thought he drifted out, and he had that set shot that could have got us closer, but ended up being kind of the catalyst for our night. The leaders kind of not taking their moments. I thought he was poorer than our inexperienced forwards. I thought, and obviously he had a tougher matchup than these guys, but I thought Caddy and May both showed more. I think he should have been better than he was. I'm going to give him a 5. I thought he at least got bits and pieces going from the limited amount of footy coming his way. 30 inside 50s for the game. You got to remember that. There's just not a lot you can do with that sometimes. But yeah, not his best night for Peter, and he's been really good this year. Archie Roberts had a horrendous defensive moment that was put in the spotlight a bit in the Fox Footy Lab to start the game, where he was tracking back with someone in a purple jumper. I don't remember who. He had a bad defensive moment. That's all you got to know. And that is something that we all have to realise, right? Because I see, everyone wants McGrath dropped so Roberts can play his role. Roberts is not a natural defender like McGrath is, okay? So Roberts is primarily the more of that ball-winning backman. He's been trying to work on his defence, and to be fair, he's done a good job. I think most of the time this year, he's actually been pretty solid down back, and which is good. And that's why we like him so much, because he's really working on his game. So I think he'll get there eventually. But right now, you've got to have these guys both in the team, because, Roberts playing on the best forwards every week would be pretty ugly. I don't think he'd be able to contain Bobby Hill and Toby Green and others like McGrath does. That's why I think both of them in the team right now is really good. It's great for Roberts' development. He's getting more freedom, more time to move, and even I talk him down defensively here, but he had some great moments. That rundown tackle on Bolton was awesome. That's the inspirational type of stuff that I wanted our captain and vice captain doing. Those intercept marks, that one late in the pack, which was really strong. I thought he was really solid, Roberts. I thought he was one of our best on ground. I'm going to give him a 7. I don't really think anyone was that great for us in the whole team. There were not many high ratings this video at all. But yeah, we're starting to have high expectations for Roberts, which is great. Because, if this is his first game, he probably gets a 9 or something. But because we know how good this kid is and how consistent he's performing, we're already raising the bar. And, was it last week or the week before? Might have been Carlton, where he had that really quiet game. And everyone was kind of thinking like, oh, Roberts had a quiet one. That's odd, and then he just, goes about business as usual after that. So it's good to see that he can, have a bit of a poor night and bounce back, because that's what he's done these last 2 weeks. So he gets a 7 out of 10. Really like Archie Roberts. Big fan. And I guess that's now time for a drink break. Now, it's a bit warm because I've brought it out of the fridge. I was going to have alcohol. Pretty much every comment, every suggestion for the drinks break is alcohol right now. You guys are crazy. You want to see me drunk. And I think eventually, there might have to be a drunk player ratings video. Today, though, I've gone, because it's a bit late, I don't want to, I think you probably shouldn't be drinking alcohol alone past a certain time. I've gone with the Rockaby protein smoothie. I don't remember who suggested this, but I was walking past it today in Coles and grabbed it. I've got the Dutch chocolate. I'm fairly sure the choc honeycomb was the one that was recommended, but that was out. That was sold out, so it must be that good that it was sold out. So I've got the Dutch chocolate, which, looks pretty good. I'm a big fan of these drinks, so I've got high expectations. Very watery, but I do like it. It does give off, and a lot of you guys suggested last week the Coco Bella chocolate coconut water. That is one of my favorite drinks. That's why I tried the watermelon one, which was pretty crap. I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. And that's good, by the way, because I like a good chocolate, chalky milk kind of drink. So a 7 for that it means that I'm going to drink it again. Thank you to whoever suggested that. And now we get back to the video. Who was I just talking about? It was Archie Roberts, right? I haven't spoken about Jaxon Prior. I hope not. I'm going to talk about Jaxon Prior. And if I have spoken about him again, I apologise, guys. You might have to fast forward. Jaxon Prior, well, I thought he was good. And I'll probably get destroyed for saying that. But yeah, he was pretty reliable. He was the only one, or not the only one, but him and Blakiston, I thought, in the air were really good. And it's interesting with Blakiston's obviously got height and inexperience, but Prior has experience and no height. So, obviously he was killed a bit by Dangerfield late in the game last week, after pocketing him in the first half, I should say. So I tweeted out at halftime that I was really impressed by Prior, and then he lost. Danger got off the leash a bit. But here he's got Pat Voss, who, every commentator is just sitting on Pat Voss's lap. There is some glazing going on with Pat Voss. They need to chill out. Because he was held. Pat Voss didn't really do much. He kicked a goal, a really nice goal. But Prior, 9 spoils, 5 intercepts, 3 contested marks. I don't think 4 one-on-one contests against Voss and didn't lose any of them in the air. That is really good for a player that small, but also, lean. Well, he's not lean, but compared to Pat Voss, he's lean. So the fact that he killed those contests in the air was really great. He went at 100% with his by foot with his touches, and obviously he's my boy. Everyone, we know that. I'm a big fan of Jaxon Prior. I just want to say with that, by the way, because I don't think this guy is really a concrete player for the future or anything. I think in an ideal world, we've got options around him coming into the side to take his place. That is what I want to see happening. But having a 23-year-old on our list who can defend and compete against players much bigger than him, like he did against the Dockers, on Pat Voss, having that player as depth for the future is really handy. And that is what makes injury scenarios like this manageable. Because without Jaxon Prior these last few weeks, we are in a much worse situation. And I think, everyone can kind of admit that because, he held Voss really well. And Voss is in a really great run of form. He's kicked 6 goals in 2 weeks before this game. He's definitely someone who struggles at times. We know that. He's not not consistent. He's just probably not at that elite level, and he probably won't be. But as a depth option, I really like him on our list for the next few years while we build around him. Hopefully, in a few years, Prior is our 8th or 9th defender on our list that we can bring in through injury. And we got him as an SSP option for cheap. So that is why I like Jaxon Prior. I don't think he's a star or anything. I just think he is a good, solid defender at his best. And that's good depth. Kind of like Laverde. We complain about Laverde on our list, but, where would we be this year without him? So thank you, Laverde. Did I give him a score? I'm going to give Prior a 7 out of 10. I think that's fair. Archie May. And this guy, by the way, we have to persist with him this year now. He was really strong. I haven't really seen much. I was watching mostly Talent League over the weekend, so I haven't seen any other young players' performances. But, I wouldn't be surprised if Archie May is in Rising Star nomination contention. I thought he had a really underrated game. He was really strong in the air. Difference in style with Caddy and May. They're both impacting in different ways. May is really his muscle at the contest and solid usage without being, amazing with the footy. Like, you never think, oh, what a kick from Archie May, but you never think that he's made a blunder. Everything he just does right. 6 marks, 2 goals, 3 tackles. I do like his defensive pressure. I like a good, strong forward who lays a tackle. I'm a big fan of Archie May. And this is his second game, and it does look like he is just happy at the level. Like, he doesn't look out of place at all, I think, and he's 20 years old. I think for a second game, I might give him an 8. I think an 8 is, I think he was, for a second game, that is really good. That we couldn't ask for much more than what he gave us, especially with the amount of footy down that end. Because I think if we only had 30 odd inside 50s. If we have 50 or 60, think about the amount of chances Archie May is getting. So, to kick 2 goals, to have that much of the footy, to be around it, to be doing good things with it. Some people even think he was around the best on ground mark. I've seen him in the votes quite a bit. So 8 out of 10 for Archie May in his second game. Xavier Duursma, injured. And you guys know me. I always forget about a player's performance after an injury. I've got in my notes positive and negative things. Probably more positive than negative, I'd say. Some big defensive efforts, kicked that goal. I thought he was doing more good than bad before he went off. And yeah, but on the injury, it is hamstring tightness, which probably means he's torn it off the bone and won't play again for the rest of the year, knowing Essendon. So 6 out of 10. Hopefully it is just tightness and we see him back soon, because he is, I think he's right up there in our Crichton race. Not near the very, very top, but, he'd be a podium chance, I'd say, Xavier Duursma. He's been pretty good for us this year. Nate Caddy, our man of the match. I had a quick squiz at your votes, by the way. I haven't counted them all yet, but it does seem like it is Caddy getting the 3 from you guys, which means he gets maximum votes, which is the first time so far in his career. It is weird because, he had 15 touches and a goal and gets 3 votes, but I think those stats are really deceiving because he was absolutely killing it for us. And that, for me, I tweeted out after the game, that was the most complete we have seen Nate Caddy look so far in his career. He just... Everything he did was exciting and right. I don't think he made... Even if he made mistakes, they were good mistakes. I think that torp down the line, the 65-metre torp, might have been a turnover. But, given what he had on offer, that was the right thing to do. It might look like a rush of blood to the head moment, but he is just doing the right thing, getting us territory where we don't have any. And the way he did it, the lackadaisical little drop onto the boot, just casually rolls out a 65-metre torp. That is crazy. Some of the stuff he did, that pack mark for the goal, those targets, finding the target inside 50 with Wright and Kako, those kicks to them were fantastic. And that is dangerous if you have a forward that not only hits the scoreboard, but can do stuff like that, can set up teammates around him. And that is why he led our score involvements. So he had 15 touches, but he led the score involvements for the game with 8. The ball barely down his end, but he's still doing so much with it. Also, the work rate, he ran 14 kilometres, which is, I think, the fourth most sprint efforts as well, I think. There was 100% time on field. He didn't come off for a rest. He was an absolute workhorse, and in my eyes, the best player of the night. I thought he was great, so I'm giving Caddy an 8 out of 10. It feels weird to be hyping up a one-goal game. I know that it might look like we're going a bit early on him and looking... with our Essendon tinted glasses. But he does look like a pretty special player, Nate Caddy. It's really good to see him and Logan Morris going at it because, both from the same draft, both look so promising for the future. Maybe one day, Logan, if you're watching, you can team up with Nate Caddy in the black and red. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know what's outside my house right now. I'll be back in a second. Alright, I've got roadworks happening outside. If you guys can hear that, I don't know if you can. Apologies if you can. It's just going to be for the last few players at least, but it's going to be annoying me for the rest of the video. Luamon Lual, still a long way off being a good player. I think we know that. There were some moments in his game which were just not AFL standard. That kick inside 50 when he was running on his own, he took a bounce. That looked harder to stuff up than nail. He doesn't look 100% comfortable at the park on the level, but you cannot question his effort and determination to, at the very least, make the game uneasy for whoever's around him. Some of those spoils and the closing speed to get there to force those turnovers, like his intent and pressure around the footy was top-notch. 14 defensive half pressure acts, that is the second most on the field. And the great thing was the reward that he got for them. It's not like they counted for nothing. He found himself on the end of 2 goals. Got an assist as well for Gresham, so he was directly involved in 3 of our 9 goals. That is either kicking them or being the person that gives it to the goal kicker. That is great. I did see some criticism. I'm not going to name names, but one of you guys shared it to me. It feels mean to just name the account. But I get that, part of Lual's game is unattractive. Like, he has work to do, obviously. But I'm starting to think that there's a player here to work with. I was fully on the delist train at the start of the year, even a few weeks ago I was. But now I feel like he's showing his worth, and I don't even know if he gets dropped when players return. He's actually impacting the game, which is really interesting because I don't even think he was properly doing that at VFL level. He looks more comfortable in the AFL than the VFL, weirdly enough. And sometimes that can be the case. AFL levels, ovals are cleaner, they're more pristine, you've got better quality of football around you, and maybe Lual is just someone who benefits from that. So 7 out of 10 for Lual. I thought he was pretty good. Matt Guelfi, I thought he had some prominent moments. There was a good pressure. There was a good tackle on the edge of the 50, which might have resulted in a shot on goal. And there was some nice contest work in the air. But yeah, I mean, quiet game. Just didn't do much. Probably his first proper bad game for the season, I'd say. Because I at least thought he gave it a crack against the Cats last week. I would have given him a decent enough grade for that game. But this Freo one, he just wasn't really doing much at all. And from a senior player, you need better than that. So I'm going to give Guelfi a 3 out of 10. I just don't think he was really involved. Angus Clarke. I like that he was taking the game on. He looked a bit like Redmond out there, in the back half, driving through his legs, using his foot, making mistakes. I thought he was one of the major culprits for some of our forward half turnovers early. And even some that weren't turnovers, like little hand passes where he could just take the tackle. Those are things that you learn as you develop, but they can be pretty costly. So yeah, he'll learn from that. He'll develop his defensive side of his game more. I do think he's more naturally suited to the wing. He has, people complain that he's being thrown to defense. He is primarily actually a defender. I think we got to remember. So, he doesn't have as much to learn as others around him. But I do think he's more suited to the wing. And I think in an ideal world, he'll be playing on the wing. So yeah, I think I'll give him a 6 out of 10. He won lots of the footy, but I preferred some of his other games, to be honest. I thought he was all right. Nic Martin, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't know, maybe I've just got a fixed idea of the game and the leaders and everything. I barely remember Nic Martin having an impact, and I was surprised that he had over 20 touches, because I just don't remember him doing much, and part of that is because he was playing out of the back half. I honestly don't even know what his role was, because, the last few weeks you've seen where he's playing and how it's impacting the game, and him at his best is really damaging wherever he was. I don't know where he was really properly playing in this game, and because if he's getting the ball up the field, he needs to be entering. I don't think he had many inside 50s or score involvements. If he's getting in the back half, he has to accumulate more than that and really drive us forward, and I don't think he was doing that at all. I think he was in between roles and not really. He wasn't really a factor because of it. And part of that is on coaching. I get that, Scott will hold his hand up and say that we probably, us fans need to know what the best players in the side are doing. I think that is a fair thing to say. And I don't really have a clear idea of how we were utilising such an important weapon. I thought when he had the ball, he was doing all right things with it, but I don't know what he was really up to. So I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. Yeah, I think that's fair. Big Vigo. How about this guy, guys? I think, this is fun because, we found Angus Clarke, Archie Roberts, Nate Caddy, Zak Johnson and Isaac Kako. Those 5 are locked in for the future, but also maybe the rest of the year. I don't think Vigo is part of that group of 5 because I think Goldie will come in for a few games. I do think Vigo will play again as the year goes on. But gee, I think this guy's going to play quite a bit of footy for Essendon. Like that is exactly what you want to see on debut. Yes, he got monstered by Luke Jackson, but I mean, the way he went about it, he was super raw, easily dispatched of in some ruck contests. So weak compared to Jaxon, but he had such a crack. There were moments in this game that got me so excited for the future when he really develops some of those marks in D50. That's stuff he's been working on in VFL level this year, sitting in the right holes. That tackle, that is what I was talking about earlier with inspiration from young players. That is a first gamer doing that. And that it was just fantastic, seeing him put his body on the line for his club. Inspirational stuff. I think we have a player here in Vigo. I think he probably plays AFL again before the year ends. And I think he gives us a bit of hope in this Draper saga in case he leaves because, I can see this guy being a really good player for us in the future. So I'm giving Vigo an 8 out of 10. I thought he was completely beaten. Like Luke Jackson was best on ground, but Vigo looked fun. That was a fun debut. And there's been a few of those this year, haven't there? Zak Johnson, here's another one with a debut, fun debut. Much less of the footy this week. Didn't find it much at all, just the 9 touches. Something that impressed me though, so with Zak Johnson, the way he got into the side was he's obviously so good with the footy, we know that, but he was probably a bit iffy in defence early on, and we needed to see him work on that in the VFL. That's why everyone was calling for a debut and he wasn't getting one. because, yeah, his defensive side of his game wasn't as strong. You can tell he's clearly worked on it. And I thought the major strength in his game on Thursday was his defensive work. I thought that it was moments in defence that made me really excited about Johnson and not him going by foot. He had 2 really big spoils on Frederick, I think both in the same quarter. Had some really good moments in the back half. Didn't quite get it going in attack, which is where he's better suited going forward. But I'm going to give him a 6 just because we saw layers in his game. Like, it's not a good game, he's not going to remember that one, but there were layers in that game that impressed me. So, yeah, he's someone you want more the footy more with than that, but can't be too unhappy with what he showed defensively. And finally, for the players, Lachlan Blakiston. Bit of a goofy player, Blakiston. I do like a good goofy goober because it is never dull when the footy's around him. He intercepts and goes. Like, those runs through the middle of the ground were exciting and chaotic and didn't always work. And realistically, while he is down in defence, he probably does need to stabilise just a little bit. I do like seeing him take the game on, but he had some costly errors and some really strange decisions. And to be fair, for him, those decisions as a ruckman 50 metres up the field don't look nearly as bad. The risk to reward is, much easier to navigate when you're a ruckman than it is a key defender. And that's what you want in a ruck, I reckon. Like, his attitude and the way he takes on the game is good. That is good for a ruckman. He's not afraid to try and break a tackle or run through a line. He's got speed for his size and he does like to move. It's just, the fact that he's doing that in the back half, running himself into trouble. Yeah, I thought that probably can go away. But defensively, I thought he was really decent. He had some big wins in marking contests. He had 9 intercept possessions. That is the second most on the field from a waffle ruckman. He had 9 intercept possessions in his second game. Yeah, I thought he was good. I like him. There's clearly room for him to be on our list given his athletic capabilities and I guess now his versatility. It is rare that a ruck can also play down back, but I mean, we've got someone who can fill in if we need them in the ruck and fill in if we need them down back. And I think that is handy to have on the list. Obviously, he's not a great option in defence. Like, we'd want, 5 or 6 players ahead of him. But, examples like this year where we don't have anyone else, he is playing his role and getting a 7 out of 10 for it. I thought he was pretty good. I doubt he stays in the team after the bye. I think Ridley and Redmond and maybe Reed will come back. But yeah, good stuff. And finally for the video, our coach, Brad Scott. He played the kids. You got to like that. He's continuing to give us reasons to be excited. If you criticise Scott for not playing the kids last year, you got to give him credit when he does hand out a debut, especially if the debut shows promise. I think he's doing really well to make the most out of this situation and give these kids really important roles out of it. There's 100% learning going on right now. You can tell. And that is important, because in the game, like, I was perplexed by some of the moves, but you can tell that there are kids out there who just are learning from this. I don't know. Do we judge him on that because that is kind of a year approach, or do we judge him on some of the moves in the game, like not being able to stem the influence of their midfield? We weren't able to get the best out of our best players. I thought we probably could have been closer in the game, but we weren't. So, I mean, he should take some brunt of that. Brad Scott, I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. I liked the youth approach, but that is kind of the approach for the year. And if we're going week to week, I think this is probably a 5 out of 10 game. It wasn't disastrous, wasn't amazing. I think it's right smack bang in the middle. But yeah, that is that. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Leave your drink suggestions down below. I've got plenty to go through. There'll be some alcohol. What I might do, actually, I think I've thought of my idea. Maybe for the end of year player ratings, I will just go crazy and just be drinking non-stop and going off some of your drink suggestions possibly. I think that's what I'll do. That could be fun for me. I don't know how fun it will be for you guys after, the 5th player because I'm a lightweight too, when I'm drunk. But anyway, cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and as always, go Bombers.